If you've not worked with reCAPTCHA before, here's the general idea. We have this form on the page. When we submit this, we want to trigger a request to Google reCAPTCHA. What that's then going to do is allow us to get a token from that request, and that will allow us to then on the back end send another request to Google, and that will give us back a score for that particular submission, or more like a threshold for that submission. Now, before we do anything, we're going to need to get a Google reCAPTCHA site set up, or register a new site. I'm just going to go ahead and call this codecourse.com here, and we want to use reCAPTCHA 3. We need to add a domain here, so we're currently working in 127001. Let's go ahead and add that in to here, and we go ahead and accept the terms of service. And we don't want to send alerts here, so let's click submit. Okay, so once that's been registered, of course, go ahead and grab the site keys. Let's go ahead and just paste these into a new file here, just so we can keep an eye on them. So let's grab the site and the secret key. So let's just label these so we don't forget what they are. So that's the site key. The site key we're going to use on the front end. The secret we're of course going to use on the back end, and we don't want to reveal that to anyone. So let's head over to the analytics. Of course, there's going to be nothing here at the moment because we've not sent any requests across. But now what we can do is actually get this hooked up to our form and at least send a request through to reCAPTCHA. So we're going to do this with Alpine. So let's just go ahead and pull in the script here directly from here. That's going to give us version 3. And let's head over to our template here, app.blade.php, and just put this at the top. While we're here, let's also go ahead and grab the script that we need to use for reCAPTCHA, and let's pop that in there. Now with this particular script, what we're going to go ahead and do is use the render option here, and we're going to pass our site key in. So let's just open this site file up with our keys, and let's go ahead and paste that in there. We will be moving this to an environment variable a little bit later because we don't really want them hanging around in our code. If they change, we're going to be in trouble. So now that we've got these both on the page, let's head back over to our form and let's start to make this work with Alpine. So to do this, we're going to go ahead and add some code to form to make this work with Alpine. So let's go ahead and just pull these down real quick. And let's go ahead and say X data in here. And we're going to have some kind of execute function, which is going to run when we submit this. So for now, let's just say console log submitted, and we can see that work. Just make sure we pull that in as well. Okay, so when this form submits, we want to call execute, which is eventually what is going to call this request or send this request through to Google reCAPTCHA. So we can go ahead and say X on submit, and we want to call execute. So if we come back over to the browser, let's go back over to our tab here, go ahead and open up our tools over to console. When we submit this, you can see a flash of submitted in there. Of course, at the moment, we're not preventing this, which is what we need to do. So let's add a prevent modifier in there. And now when we go ahead and submit this, we just see submitted. So now inside of execute, this is where we want to send the request through to Google reCAPTCHA to get the token, which we eventually need to send through to the backend. So we already have this pulled onto the page under our base template. So we're going to go ahead and say Google reCAPTCHA, and we're going to make sure that is ready. So that's going to give us a callback here for when that's ready. And then we're going to go ahead and say Google reCAPTCHA, and we're going to call execute, and we're going to pass our site key in here once again. So we can go ahead and grab that from app just here. So let's pull that in real quick. And let's pop that directly in there. So that's the first argument. The second is the action, which is kind of like a label. So this could be, for example, just submit. It could be login. It could be register. It really depends on what you want to call this. It does not matter. It could be anything, and it just determines what you're submitting. So this shows up in your statistics. For example, you might see a certain failure rate on your login page, but not so much on other pages. So I'm just going to go ahead and call this post, just so we know how to identify this. Now, once this request finishes, that's when we get that token back. So let's add in the promise resolution here, and let's go ahead and add in the token in here that we get back from this request, which at the moment is pretty useless to us. We can't really extract any information from this token at the moment, but at least let's go ahead and try and see if it works. Let's hit create post, and there we go. We have our token. Now this is what we want to send through to the back end, so we can go ahead and send a request through to Google and actually get back the threshold information about that request. So ideally what we want on this form is some kind of hidden input. Let's go ahead and call this reCAPTCHA token. And let's use xref in here so we can actually have a reference value to this. And again, let's call this reCAPTCHA token. So what we can do now is take this name and we can go ahead and reference this with this refs and reCAPTCHA token, and we can set the value to that token, and then we can go ahead and submit the form manually. So el submit. El references the current element, which is what we've attached Alpine to with this component, and that is the form. So that's just going to go ahead and submit that for us. So this is going to work now. Let's go ahead and hit create post. That's going to go through to here, but now we actually have that data over on our post controller. So let's go ahead and extract that out. Let's go ahead and bring in our request object here, and let's just call that request, and let's die dump on request and reCAPTCHA token. Let's see if it works. Create post, and there we go. There is our reCAPTCHA token. That's exactly what we want to send across to the reCAPTCHA API so we can extract out the information about this weather to determine if this passes or fails.